Welcome to the second part of video lecture on leadership styles and motivation theory. The first part of the video, we looked at various styles of leadership, various research that has been conducted on leadership style. Now we are going to discuss on various motivation theories that exist. Before that, let's understand why motivation is important. For any organization to succeed, it is important for the employees to be satisfied, to be more happy. If the employees are happy, we consider that they give their best. When they give their best, it is quite obvious that the performance of the organization is also better. But what makes an individual or the employees to be satisfied is to understand what are their needs. The individuals behave in a certain way, and that behavior is obviously driven through various aspects, including personality types, traits, etc., that we've discussed in the earlier module. However, the behavior is also driven through the inner need that exists. For instance, why are we working so hard? Why do we have to work? For a simple reason that we have certain needs to meet, and to meet those needs, we need certain resources, and the job that we do or the work that we do will help to acquire those resources to meet our needs. So with that, we try to put in our efforts to ensure that our needs are fulfilled. Therefore, it is important for us to understand, as part of leadership theory, what is the impact of the motivation that an individual has on their performance, and how, as a leader, should be considering these aspects of motivation to take appropriate decision. And if a leader is able to understand the motivational aspect, I feel that he or she may become effective leader. Let's look at various classification of theories that exist on motivation. Basically, motivation is anything that affects behavior in pursuing a certain outcome. You can see the motivation process. You feel there's a need, and there's a motive that drives your need, and you tend to have a certain behavior that you exhibit, which has basically a consequence, which is a result, and that result, either it is satisfied or not satisfied, and there's a feedback. Again, it goes back to your need. When we talk about the motivation theories from a leadership perspective, basically we classify into three broad categories. The first one, we talk about content motivation theory. The second, we talk about process motivation theory. The third one, we talk about reinforcement theory. The first part, content motivation theory, is a straightforward, simple approach where they try to understand what is the need of an employee, and their need will help the leader or the team to predict the behavior of those individuals. Whereas the second one, process motivation theory, goes one step further, tries to understand why an individual has those needs and how he or she is trying to meet those needs, fulfill their needs. This is very important for us to understand, because if you understand how an individual is trying to fulfill their needs, then you can use appropriate leadership style which will help them to perform and meet their needs. The third one is reinforcement theory, which is basically a sort of behavior that that can be explained or predicted and controlled through consequences of behavior. For instance, anything that you do good, if there is a appreciation or praise for somebody, what will happen is you tend to behave the similar way because you knew or you can recall that earlier when you did have the similar behavior that was more of positive ones, you tend to repeat it again and again. There are multiple dimensions that we need to look at each of those theories. We will try to look at each of them quickly. And some of them you would have already studied in your undergraduation. To begin with, the content motivation theory, the first one we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, which is a classic theory that we've been discussing for a number of times in various occasions. I'm sure you have studied this in your undergraduation as well. Basically, there are four assumptions that are considered in this specific theory. First one, only unmet needs motivate. That means something that you want to achieve, that motivates. There's a need that I want to meet that drives an individual. And people needs are arranged in order of importance, going from basic to complex needs. We are going to look at the levels from low order level to high order level of needs. It also assumes that the people will not be motivated to satisfy higher level need unless the lower level needs have been met, at least whatever minimum has been satisfied. And also the fourth one, it assumed that the people have 5 classification of needs, which are ordered from low to high level of need. What are these? As I said, you would have studied this earlier, but just for our quick reference, we are going to look at it. And the next slide will talk about how we need to use them in our uh, context of leadership. First one to begin with, physiological needs. We call it as roti, kapada or makan, the basic needs that are required for any person to exist. So if you would like to have that kind of a, if you have those needs, and how am I able to fulfill those needs? So you work hard towards, at least I will ensure that my basic needs are met. Once you achieve that, once your needs are met, then you go for the safety needs, which are higher, little higher order than the physiological needs, where you look at safety and security. The next one is belongingness needs, which are also called as social needs, where an individual is driven through the kind of relationship that he wants to have with a set of people. It's more of a networking. Then you have self-esteem needs, which are more of focusing on ego, self-respect, status, etc. The self-actualization needs or self-realization is one's feeling that he has achieved and he wants to ensure that entire whatever potential that an individual has, he's able to achieve that. So in our organizational context, if you look at the physiological needs, we look at basically the adequate salary and breaks and working conditions are physiological needs. When it comes to safety needs, working conditions, salary increase, which meets the inflation that is happening in the external environment, to what extent my job is secured, and what are the other benefits that I get as part of my safety needs. The next one, we talk about social needs, where what kind of opportunities that an individual has in an organization where he can interact with others or be accepted as friends, and activities could include various recreational activities and things like that. The esteem needs are the organizations can meet these through the titles, satisfaction of completing the job itself, and merit pay, raises, recognition, challenging tasks, etc. The self-actualization needs are development of employee skills, and do we provide an opportunity for the individual to be creative, which leads to promotions and other areas. This is typically discussed in the context of an organization. And as a leader, we need to identify where does my team or team member fits into these needs. The next one, which we quite often discuss again, is two-factor theory of Herzberg, which was published in 1960s. Basically, if you compare that with the Maslow's theory, lower level needs were called as hygiene or maintenance factors, and higher level were considered as motivators. The two-factor theory proposes that the people are motivated by the motivators rather than the maintenance factors. Now, what does this mean? All of you know about it. The maintenance factors are more of extrinsic factors, which talks about pay, job, security, and other areas. Motivators are more of recognition, achievement, giving a challenging task or advancement, and things like that. Now, why is this important for you to understand is what makes an individual motivated? Is it the extrinsic factors which are important or intrinsic factors? Both are important, but what is more relevant for us to understand is when you look at maintenance factors, if you have them, you cannot assure that the employees are satisfied, but you can assure that they are not satisfied. But whereas motivation factors, if it is there, then they are motivated, they are satisfied. If they are not there, they're not motivated. So we need to focus on providing these intrinsic motivators where we give them more recognition, achievement, you give them more increased responsibility. We talk about job rotation, job enrichment, and things like that. This will make an individual more motivated to perform rather than just giving the pay hike. Pay hike, if you give, it doesn't mean that they are motivated. But if you don't give, for sure, they are not motivated at all, satisfied and not dissatisfied. The next one, we are going to talk about acquired needs theory, which is similar to the McClellan's theory that we discussed in achievement motivation theory as part of the traits theory earlier. Basically, acquired needs theory proposes that the people are motivated by their need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. Every individual has a specific drive within him. Either he focuses on need for achievement. Need for achievement is, I would like to achieve, I would like to complete the task, I would like to complete the job, is the ultimate focus. He wants to get the things done. But whereas power is a situation where an individual feels that he or she needs to have complete control and power, and he may do it by himself or with a set of people, but he wants the decision making process to be given to him. And need for affiliation is more got to do with how do I get along with the people, and how do I maintain good relationship with the people around me. I would like to have that good relationship with the individual. There is a high possibility that an individual might have the need for achievement as well as need for power, or the combination of need for power and affiliation, or need for achievement and affiliation. When an individual has need for high achievement, at that time, as a leader, we expect them to give non-routine, challenging tasks with clear, attainable objectives, because this individual is intrinsically motivated to achieve the objective. That's why we call him as need for achievement, high need for achievement. Give them fast and frequent feedback on their performance, and continuously give them more responsibility of doing things, and do not indulge on micromanagement with those individuals, because ultimately they would like to achieve the goal, whatever has been set. If an individual has a high need for power, then let them plan and control their jobs as much as possible. You just tell them what has to be done and leave it to them. They will take care of what has to be done. This will motivate them because they feel that they have the ultimate power, and they tend to take the decisions, and then they would like to complete the task. They might have high achievement as well as high power, because if they have the feeling that they need to be given the freedom to take a decision, typically they'll have high power score. Typically, it is considered that they may perform best alone rather than working in a team. Sometimes it works, sometimes it may not, but if complete freedom is given to them, they will be highly motivated. The third one, need for high affiliation. Basically, these are the individuals who would like to work as team members. They may perform effectively as team members rather than leading the team, because they would like to be a part of the team and they would like to work with the people rather than the task itself. As well as we need to give them recognition and achievement, whatever they have done, we need to recognize them. Comparison, if we would like to do it on content motivation theory, the hierarchy of needs theory of Maslow's, there are about 5 levels, and the lower order needs are maintenance, and the higher order needs are considered as motivators. We compare that with two-factor theory, and the last one, acquired need theory of McKellen's. Achievement and power is more of self-actualization and esteem, which are also motivators. The motivators as part of two-factor theory. And belongingness or social need, which we have in hierarchy of needs in Maslow's, is more of a maintenance factor when it comes to two-factor theory. And affiliation, need for affiliation when it comes to McKellen's theory. Moving on, the next theory is process motivation theory, which focuses more on how people choose their behavior to fulfill their needs. This goes one step further as we compare that with the content motivation theory. Why people have different needs and why their needs change, and how the individuals choose to satisfy their needs in different ways. And also the various mental processes that individuals go through as they understand the situation and how they evaluate their need satisfaction. To begin with, let's look at equity theory. Equity theory is an interesting theory that exists where it is focusing on two keywords which are highlighted here. One is perceived, the other one is relevant to others. It proposes that the people are motivated when their perceived inputs equal output. That means an individual will put in more efforts if he or she knows that his efforts are being recognized either through the monetary or non-monetary benefits. More work, more rewards. It depends on that, as well as the other factor that we need to look at is the person also tries to compare with his counterparts, his team members. I have put in so much of effort and others have also put in so much of effort. Is there any difference amongst them? If there is a difference, then if that difference is more of the others have put in less efforts, but their recognition is more, outcome is more, then the individual gets demotivated. If he knows that the input and the output, whatever the input that individuals have put in, have the similar output and there is no disequilibrium, then they will not be disturbed or they will not be demotivated. Then we talk about expectancy theory. Expectancy theory is basically we look at if I put in efforts, what is the ultimate reward that I'm going to get? If my additional effort that I'm going to put, if it is worth the effort, then I will put in more effort to make sure that the task is completed. So this is based on Victor's V-Room's formula, where we talk about expectancy, instrumentality, and balance. Expectancy refers to the perception of an individual of his or her ability to accomplish a specific objective. And instrumentality refers to the belief that the performance will result in getting the reward. This is very important because if an individual feels that whatever efforts that he is going to put in and that efforts are going to be recognized and honored, then he will put in more effort, more extra efforts. Balance refers to the value that a person places on the outcome or the reward. Basically, once an individual performs, when he gets the recognition or rewarded, what is that reward? Does it make him or her satisfied, or does he get something which he or she values is more important? How do you use this expectancy theory as a leader Clarify, clearly define what is objective and mention what is the performance necessary to achieve them. And performance to rewards. High performance should be rewarded when one employee works harder to produce more than the other employee and is not rewarded, he or she may slow down the productivity. So make sure that the actual performance is recognized and is linked with the reward. Third one, which we discussed earlier also, make sure that the rewards are of value to the employee. For instance, you look at somebody who achieves a target, gets a round trip to a specific destination with the family and things like that. So there is a tangibility that is involved. The employees value that. So make sure that the recognition that you're going to give is of some value that an individual attaches. Fourth one, make sure that the employee believes that you will do whatever you have promised. That means if you've mentioned that anybody who has achieved this target or a specific goal, then you will be recognized. Make sure that you implement it. Do not go back with your words. The fifth one, use the Pygmalion effect to increase expectations. Basically, Pygmalion effect talks about what are the expectations of the leader by his followers. If his expectations are higher, obviously his team members also will put in more efforts to achieve the goal. So set the target level of expectations little high, but ensure that the high level that you set is achievable. Then we talk about goal setting theory. Goal setting theory, basically talks about you set a goal and you ask the people, your team members, to achieve that goal. Basically, the research has proved that the objective, when you set the objective, it has a positive effect on motivation as well as performance, because your efforts are directed towards meeting a specific goal. Basically, if you go back to McClellan's theory, the individuals who have high achievement with the motivated individually, they are able to consistently engage in the entire goal setting. Now, how do we set the goals or objectives? We need to look at providing a singular result so that the individuals or the team members do not get confused of multiple objectives or the goals that we are going to achieve. So ensure that there's a singular specific objective that is set amongst the team members, and you have to be specific what has to be achieved, and that goal has to be easily measurable. It should be a milestone or anything that can be easily measurable, and you provide a target date, so that the individuals know that this is the result that I want to achieve, this is the goal that I want to achieve, and this is how we are going to measure, and this is the timeline within which I have to achieve the goal. The additional criteria that we are going to have is to be considered by the leaders. Make sure that it is difficult, but don't make it too difficult by setting high goals which cannot be achieved. And it should be participatively set. You considered the opinion of the team members and try to set the goal, and also ensure that there is a commitment from the team members to achieve that specific goal. The last one which we're going to talk about is the reinforcement theory. It is an interesting theory. Basically, we try to repeat the similar behavior if our behavior is positively recognized. For instance, somebody who does extremely well all the time, let's say performance, if he or she is being recognized, then always he feels that I should be able to maintain or sustain the similar performance so that I'll be able to recognize or get the honor. And this is very important for a leader to understand, because the reinforcement theory makes sure that your team members are able to perform better and help you achieve the goals. Basically, it uses this reinforcement theory, uses behavior modification, where you apply reinforcement theory to get employees to do what you actually want them to do, and also provide operant conditioning, where you have different types and schedules of reinforcement, which we are going to discuss in short while. Basically, there are 4 types of reinforcement. The first one is positive reinforcement. The second one is avoidance or negative reinforcement. Third one is extinction or withholding reinforcement. And the fourth one is the punishment. Positive reinforcement is more got to do with basically you recognize somebody who is doing well and you say that, well, you're doing well. It's more of a praise or a recognition for a positive behavior. But whereas when you look at, for instance, somebody who comes, who achieves, who follows the instructions in your team, who does the work, you call him and say that in a meeting, you call him or her and say that this is the good work done by this particular individual. So it is a positive reinforcement. The second one is avoidance reinforcement or negative reinforcement, where you don't uh, you set a system where you make the employees to avoid negative consequence. That means you set up a system where you try to avoid that negative consequences of their behavior. The third one is extinction. Uh, Basically, the um, extinction talks about not doing anything. For instance, somebody who does not perform, who does not do anything, there's no pay rise, there's no appreciation for him. You stop at that. You basically, you do not encourage that desirable behavior. And the fourth one is punishment, which is quite obvious that somebody who has not done it, you try to punish. For instance, if somebody who is unable to achieve the target, then you say that we are going to deduct a specific amount of bonus that you have because you have not achieved. It's more of a punishment. Now, how do you do this reinforcement? This is the illustration. If a manager has an assistant who makes many errors while completing the correspondence, you discuss with your assistant and you say that decrease the error rate by 50%, let's say specific date is mentioned there, based on assistant's performance at that time. You have 4 types of reinforcement that you can use with her when you meet next. You've given a certain task to her saying that you have to reduce these errors by 50% on a specific time period. If you're looking at the positive reinforcement, you say praise improvements, saying that there's an improved performance, assuming that there's an improved performance. When you have avoidance, do not give any reprimand. You just keep. Right? The individual will feel that, well, I mean, I was given a time, but I didn't improve. Let me go back and improve. If the performance is not improved, extinction, withhold any kind of a raise or a, when you have the performance appraisal, do not give them any appraisal as such. Then the fourth one is the punishment, where you take a disciplinary action against that particular individual, saying that I told you to improve, you have not improved. I'm going to issue a memo to you saying that you are not performing as per the expectations. How do you schedule the reinforcement? Either it can be continuous reinforcement or it can be intermittent reinforcement, which is based on passage of time and things like that, as well as the ratio schedule. Intermittent reinforcement, either it can be fixed interval schedule, right? So a specific time period you define and say that let's review and let's look at who has done well and who's not doing well. And variable interval schedule is more of, unexpectedly you just randomly pick and say that let's review this and then find out who has done well. And fixed ratio schedule is a specific target you give and you say that if you achieve so and so, this is the kind of raise that you're going to get. If you go beyond this, this is the raise that you're going to get. Right? And then variable ratio schedule, basically, for instance, identify an individual who has done extremely well and give them higher recognition without any specific, areas that you are going to focus. For instance, give them a lottery for employee who have not been absent for a set amount of time. You identify those kind of behaviors which will motivate them. Right? General guidance for positive reinforcement, we look at making sure that the employees know exactly what is expected of them. All these points that we have is basically we want to make sure that we tell our team members what we expect and give them freedom and ask them to perform. Once they perform, we recognize their performance either through positive, negative, or avoidance, extinct, or punishment. But we need to make sure that we monitor them, and then we push them saying that do not worry, you're doing well, you will be able to do well. And identify and recognize that that is going to give you more productivity or higher performance, as well as a leader may be effective when he's using this positive reinforcement. This completes the motivational theories and its relationship with leadership. The next video, we're going to talk about various leadership theories and models. Thank you very much for watching this video.